And we also want to thank our sponsors, of course, our ongoing sponsors, Javian, Jackson Healthcare, along with Look Listen and the Hatton Group, who are help us make these events happen as well. And I'm going to turn it over to Scott. He's going to introduce DeLinda to us, because that is what we're here, is to hear her words of wisdom, and then we'll come back with a panel and talk about it some more.
Thank you very much, Shannon. Wait, normally nobody's louder than me. There we go. There's the volume. Welcome to Improving Atlanta, everybody. We're glad you're here. It's exciting, as Shannon mentioned before, it's exciting to get the group together and do both keynote as well as panel discussion. And we are very excited to welcome DeLinda and her husband Tom on their, I wrote it down, on their Conscious Capitalism cross-country crusade. How many people do you know who are having a Conscious Capitalism cross-country crusade? I mean, that's pretty fun. Nobody else is that crazy.
In an RV.
In an actual RV. So I do also want to say we appreciate our partnership with the Alpharetta Chamber of Commerce, represented here tonight by our CEO, Deborah Lanham, and by our chairman, Mr. Chairman, Casey Robinson, who's in the furniture business, by the way. So that's why he is the chairman. Also in the VIP section, Mark Kovacevic is my counterpart in our North region for Improving, and is managing director. Thank you, Mark, for making this a priority on your calendar as well. Improving is a group of technology consultants, software engineers, coaches, trainers, many of which represented in the room tonight, who have a passion for building better software solutions, all in. Our purpose, as Conscious Capitalism teaches us, is to build the trusted partnerships that change many of the common perceptions of the IT professional. And that's the purpose that we try to live out as a community bunch, as a wild and crazy bunch, and as a stakeholder-centered group. And with that, I will do my duty in welcoming our special guest tonight. DeLinda Forsythe is the successful CEO, author, and Conscious Capitalism ambassador, dedicated to inspiring ethical entrepreneurship as a millennial mentor. Her Amazon best-selling book, Inspirational Generational Leadership, Your Guide to Design a Conscious Culture, takes the reader through her 15-year case study of how she has achieved industry-defining financial, societal, and financial success as an Inc. 5000 7-time company. Inspiring generational leadership, is a must read, and that's why you have it in front of you. Everybody who attended tonight has a copy of this book. It's how to design a corporate culture in partnership with younger generations, a culture that motivates, attracts, and retains local, inspired employees. Nothing more critical in our world today. So if you have not already received your copy, we'll have an opportunity for you to grab that, and maybe you can snag DeLinda for an autograph. With that, everybody, DeLinda Forsythe.
That's wonderful. What a great introduction. And thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. I know that your time is valuable, and I so appreciate you coming out, and I so appreciate Scott for inviting me here. He actually is the reason that we're on this cross-country conscious capitalism crusade. So Kansas City just came up with that whole thing, and he's the reason we're here. And we know each other through the CCI network. It's a national and a global network. If you're not involved with CCI and Conscious Capitalism Atlanta, I highly encourage you to do so. And as you heard, I'm the CEO and founder of Innovative Commercial Environments, San Diego's most creative office and hospitality furniture dealership. And we've got a lot of content to cover this evening. If you don't mind, there's pen and paper on the table so you can take some notes. You can ask questions during the Q&A portion of the evening. And I'm going to go through this a little bit quickly because there's just a lot of content. So what are we going to talk about today? Why I started ICE, what is conscious capitalism, and why is it more relevant now than ever before? What was the original vision that our founding fathers had for capitalism is the Great Resignation, really the Great Escape, and a few key takeaways of inspiring generational leadership and the Virtuous Circle. And with a focus on mentorship is mutually beneficial, aligned values, succession planning, and how to learn more about conscious capitalism. So why did I start ICE? Well, I started ICE in 2006 from a spare bedroom when my son was accepted into Georgetown. And at the time, I was a single mom. I had just met my wonderful husband, and in 2005, and he had asked me, or told me, I was having some struggles at work, and he was seeing how I was treated at work. And Tom was at that time with MetLife for about 33 years. And it's a highly regulated industry, and the furniture industry is not regulated. And he saw that how I was being treated. He said, you should just start your own business. And then my son was accepted into Georgetown, and I thought, I am never going to be able to afford this unless I take a chance to become an entrepreneur. I also wanted to create a space where especially women felt safe, a space that I had only imagined but never experienced in 20 years of being in the furniture industry at that time. ICE has always been other focused. That was the intention of starting the company. And we have always hired millennials right from the beginning. As a startup, that's all I could attract was young, inexperienced women. And it actually became our secret sauce over the years. Because when you mentor young women and you give them that kind of opportunity, boy, they really excel. And that has really become the secret sauce of ICE. And now millennials are more than 75% of the US workforce. So what inspires millennials should be top of mind for all leaders. The purchasing ethics of millennials are likely the reason for the 50% increase in conscious consumerism. So again, if you're not thinking about what inspires, what engages millennials, you're really missing a great opportunity for growth. In 2019, I started to wonder, why are we so successful? We have been on the Inc. 5000 at that time 6 times. We've now been on the Inc. 5000 fastest growing companies in America 7 times. Only 1.5% of US corporations have achieved this, and no other furniture dealerships. And what we did was really not that unique. There was no reason to explain why we were so successful. And our growth, the lowest growth in 2014, I think was 62%, and our highest growth was 150%. And that's very, very high growth for our industry. It's usually single digit. And that's when I was introduced to this book and this movement and this idea, Conscious Capitalism. And I learned that we intuitively engaged the concepts of and the tenets of conscious capitalism. Before we even knew about it, we were kind of living this leading with these leadership strategies. And I also realized that these tenets were in complete alignment with the millennial generation, which was the majority of our workforce. And when you lead with values that align with your workforce, you create very sticky employee engagement. So what are the tenets of conscious capitalism? It starts with higher purpose. And higher purpose is above profitability, that the true purpose of a corporation is to elevate humanity. That's the number one, in my opinion, probably the number one motivating tenet in conscious capitalism. I love this higher purpose. And everybody's talking about higher purpose now. And our higher purpose statement at ICE is creating space to transcend the ordinary. What we do for a living is we create beautiful physical spaces for our customers that transcend the ordinary for their employees. But as important to us as a company is that we create safe emotional space for our employees to transcend the ordinary. Conscious businesses also have conscious leadership, they have conscious culture, and they have stakeholder integration. So those are the tenets that define a conscious business. And what's interesting, and people seem to really love this, especially more old school leaders. I won't say anything how, I'm not even looking. Is in the firms of endearment, this was a 15-year study. 15-year study that looked at the cumulative returns of the S&P 500 companies, good to great companies, and firms of endearment, conscious businesses. This was even before that term was out there. And Raj Sisodia was one of the co-founders of the Conscious Capitalism movement. And they found that they were 14 times more profitable. So you're not giving up anything when you embrace these tenets and deliver these leadership strategies. And on page 6 of my book, I talk about this natural progression of capitalism, that this was something that the founding fathers actually envisioned. So let me just read a few words from page 6. That our free market system, which has reduced poverty and expanded opportunity more effectively than any other previous system. In 1990, 36% of the world's population lived in abject poverty, 36%. By 2015, that number had dropped by 65% down to 12%. Why? Because the Soviet Union had collapsed and China had started adopting some of our free market systems. Capitalism works. It has reduced poverty in the world more effectively than any other form of government. And our founding fathers actually envisioned a government and a country that improved through generational wisdom. They saw us improving. They anticipated that we as a species would evolve, but integrity was needed for capitalism to function optimally. They assumed that we would lead with integrity and ethics. And they also felt that this was not just a form of government, but it was a way of life and an uncompromising commitment to liberty. And in many ways, capitalism has failed our founding fathers' expectations, but that should be expected as we seek opportunities to improve and progress. It's just what we do as a species. We're constantly improving. We're constantly progressing. Conscious capitalism is a natural progression of capitalism. And in 1959, a lot of you probably heard of Peter Drucker. He's considered one of the greatest leadership coaches and strategists of all time. He actually anticipated this shift when he suggested that organizations would be dominated by knowledge workers. This is 1959, and now 7 out of 10 of the most valuable companies in the world are tech companies populated by knowledge workers. So this is not something that's new or has just sprung up. It has been evolving towards this for generations, and actually right from the beginning. The past leaders led by telling. This is again what Peter Drucker said. Past leaders led by telling, but future leaders would be more apt to ask. They'd be less authoritative. They'd be more collaborative. And this is what I have found with working with millennials for the last 16 years. They love to collaborate. They love to be part of the solution. They want to have some skin in the game. They want to walk alongside their leaders and come up with strategies and ideas and processes to improve the company. And this is natural to them. And if you engage them in this way, they will bloom. They will absolutely bloom. And I was trying to think of this one story, but it's eluding me right now I remember now. A friend of mine read chapter 1, and you can download chapter 1. It's on my website for free. Send it to everybody, please do. And she called me, and she didn't text, she actually called, which was cute. She's a millennial. And she said, you really get us, don't you? I'm just so excited. You could tell she had tears in her eyes. She was so excited that her way of leading and what she thought was valuable. And I was like, well, I've always led that way. That's the only way to lead. I'm sure you've also heard of servant leadership. Ken Blanchard and a lot of leaders are talking about servant leadership, and that's side-by-side leadership. That's not leading from the top and then telling people. It's leading in collaboration, in partnership, and that works very, very well. You're going to hear a little bit more about that, and you're also going to hear a little bit more about this mutuality, the economics of mutuality, because capitalism is successful because it's mutually beneficial, especially if it's consciously implemented. When 1 in 3 workers have left their place of employment because they felt that employers and their place of business did not respect them, did not care for them, does that sound like the Great Resignation, or does that sound more like the Great Escape? So the data is coming out that it's really a workplace issue, that today's workforce must be inspired, which leads to feelings of gratitude, engagement, loyalty, and trust. When you inspire your workers, this is what comes about, is these feelings of gratitude, engagement, loyalty, and trust. And I detail that quite a bit in the book, because that's my experience with working with millennials. Deloitte's US CEO noted in the last year that the #1 constraint in running our businesses is the availability of talent. Human capital is a prime source of business value. And that's a real shift. There are actually 4 forms of capital. There's human, societal, environmental or natural, and financial. We've been measuring the success of our businesses only through the financial aspect, only through a P&L statement. And leaders, I'm just saying, if that's how you're measuring your businesses, through a P&L statement, you're failing your company as a business, because you're not seeing what's coming up around the corner, that there's other ways of measuring the success, the resiliency, the stability of your business. And it's not just with a P&L statement. P&L statement is important, but that's just one way to measure the success of your business. This is a really new poll that just came out from MIT Sloan, that the toxic culture is 10.4 times more likely to contribute to attrition than compensation. Think about that. A toxic culture, which is pennies to create, pennies. When you look at the comparison of your budget, your annual budget, compensation is 40 or 50% of your annual budget. To create a joyful, engaging corporate culture is minimal in comparison to actually losing an employee. And you can see this, 33% of an employee's annual salary is the cost of replacing that employee. And they estimated it was the cost for lost employees in 2020 was $630 billion. Creating a joyful culture, an inclusive culture, it just doesn't even cost that much. We actually have a culture committee. We have culture warriors. And it's within the company that they work on this, and they love it. They love creating this culture. They love being part of creating and being part of the culture of our company, of ICE. And as you heard, ICE, Inspiring Generational Leadership, is a 15-year case study of ICE, a company that has had measurable financial and societal success because of incorporating these co-generational leadership strategies in partnership. 2 years of research resulted in this book of understanding the virtuous circle and why an employee-focused business is so impactful. And initially, it was something that I was thinking was not really necessary to write this book because it's such a simple story. Our book is so simple, and we just intuitively came up with these leadership strategies. And it inspires millennials because they are the data confirms they're the most altruistic generation that's ever existed. So if you want to inspire them, if you want to attract and retain talent, you have to connect with their altruistic nature. And the virtuous circle starts with the ICE story, and it starts with people, it leads with purpose, and it results in profit. And I'm often asked, how did your culture of mentorship begin? And Elise Cooper in this picture joined my firm in 2008. She's the daughter of my fitness instructor, and she was a full-time college student and a full-time employee at ICE. And she was looking for a job, a college job, so she joined the company in 2008. And it was we just naturally created this culture of mentorship. She's a year younger than my son, and I really connected with her, and it felt very parental because I knew her mother so well. Her mother's our bookkeeper. She's actually just joined our company, that's right, like last week. So, yeah, she did, I know, we didn't keep up with it all. We're hiring so many people. She joined our company in HR, isn't that interesting? So I know, the virtuous circle just goes on and on. So that's how our company started, this culture of mentorship. We've always led with vulnerability, integrity, and empathy. And what did the founding fathers assume? That we would have integrity within our companies, that would be part of how we led. And empathy, that is considered the #1 leadership strategy now. Everybody's talking about empathy. Well, these are, leadership strategies that we just intuitively engage right from the beginning. Doing well and doing good need not and should not be mutually exclusive. There's an entire chapter on that. And essentially, it's doing good in the community, in your family, in your businesses. When you do good, you will do well. And there's a lot of proof in that because that's how we've always worked at ICE. It's how we've always led. So how we've always thought is doing a lot of philanthropic work out in the community. And keystones. I could do an entire workshop on keystones. I love this idea of keystones. I actually heard it first from a friend of mine's book, Greg Horowitz's book, The Rainforest, and how to build the next Silicon Valley. And he projected that San Diego, where we're from, would be the next Silicon Valley, and we would build this very empowered, very connected community through keystones. And they are social, highly networked, socially connected individuals, like-minded individuals that connect people in a community. And it's like I said, I could talk an entire workshop on keystones. Our culture of gratitude, engagement, loyalty, and trust was just naturally what we developed, and it ultimately led to our brand. So we are very, very well known for having this culture of, I call it GELT, just to make it easy, gratitude, engagement, GELT. And that led to our brand. We didn't create a brand and say this is who we are, because that's not really gonna work. The culture needs to create the brand. And we now attract talent from all over the country. They send in their resumes, say, hey, are you hiring? You know, when you're ready for this position, here's my resume. I really want to work for your company. We have zero employee attraction issue. And when you're growing like we're growing, we need constant, new employees. We can't hire them fast enough. These next 3 items, I'm going to break down in a little bit more detail. Mentorship is mutually beneficial, aligned generational values, and succession planning. Mentorship is mutually beneficial. The mentor learns as much as the mentee. And sharing generational wisdom creates a caring, nurturing culture, a sense of belonging, and improves the feelings of well-being. And you're hearing this a lot in the news now, that this feelings of mental well-being, that our youth do not have that right now. They're not feeling cared for. They're not feeling valued. They don't have great mental well-being. Well, this culture, because it's top down, bottom up, and peer to peer, it's all around. It's everybody in our company has created this culture, and it's made people feel valuable, and cared for people care for people. We're growing because we're not losing our customers. And why are we not losing our customers? Because our employees are taking care of our customers. This is not rocket science. It's very simple. And I think it's one of the reasons why did we need this book? But people keep saying, well, this is not intuitive to other people. It's intuitive to our company, but it's not intuitive to everybody. And the mentor learns as much as the mentee. In 2015, we have an emerging leader group at that time, and Elise was part of it, that wanted to do a work from home policy. It's 2015. And my wonderful husband, who was with MetLife for 37 years before he retired, and joined our firm in operations. He was part of the leadership team. And as boomers, we were like, work from home, that's crazy. I know what they're gonna be doing. They're gonna be doing the laundry. They're gonna be walking the dog, whatever. That's probably what we would do. And we didn't think that was a great idea, but this employee was moving to Arizona. So we're like, well, if it doesn't work out, she's moving to Arizona. It's not like she's local. We'll give it a shot. Well, fast forward to 2020, when everybody was working from home. We were already set up. Everybody had that capability for years to work from home. My competitors were not set up, but we were. And in it's the next slide. So that is the feelings of, that mentorship is mutually beneficial. And in 2021, I was trying to figure out if our great culture that we worked so hard to achieve for all of those years, and we put so much effort into it, with the lockdowns and everybody was working from home, except for a few salespeople and project managers here and there, but the offices were pretty much empty. If we still had a great culture. And I love this Inc. magazine, Best Places to Work, and I see Improving has been Best Places to Work, and you've been on the Inc. 500 and Inc. 5000. Congratulations. I submitted for that because I wanted to know and measure. You got your P&L statement, but I wanted to measure our engagement. We had 100% engagement. And in 2021, the Gallup average engagement was 30%. So obviously what we're doing is working. Aligned values do lead to engagement. And there's 2 chapters in IGL that begin with the end in mind. One is on mentorship and another one is on succession planning. And why is succession planning so important? Why is it so critical to corporate sustainability? Because 99% of businesses in the United States are small businesses. And how we mentor our youth, how we encourage entrepreneurship is critical to our way of living, to our whole society. And February 22nd, 2022, Elise and I finalized our purchase sale agreement. So this young woman who's been with me for 15 years, who's been leading the company since March 13th, 2020, when COVID hit, and we decided that with our age, it would be best for us not to be in the office anymore. She's been leading the company beautifully. We had 0 layoffs in 2020. And when nobody was coming to the office and nobody was buying office furniture, we had an 8% revenue growth, which is just phenomenal that we were able to be that stable in such a crisis. And I really believe it's because of everything that we had done to create this culture, to create this space that people felt valued. And I talk about it in the book too, about being your brother's keeper. I get a little emotional when I talk about this. And I talk about entrepreneurship. And I encourage our employees to think like entrepreneurs. That an entrepreneurship is when you work for a company, but you behave like you're an entrepreneur. And I said, this is when it's really, this is where the rubber meets the road, is that I want you to see your name on that door. Whew, I'll get through this. I want you to know that you're responsible for your coworker's job, that you are your brother's keeper. And we don't want to have any layoffs this year. And we achieved that. And that was pretty astonishing. So succession planning is important because it creates a smooth transition of ownership. It maximizes enterprise value and founders yield because this company is more important to Elise than some outside purchaser, right? It maximizes enterprise value and founders yield. It ensures the continuation of the owner's legacy, and my personal favorite, of course, it inspires the great American entrepreneurial spirit. Because our youth, many of our youth, especially in California, think that capitalism is evil, that capitalism is not a good form of government. And that kind of breaks my heart because I'm a mother and I'm a grandmother. And the thought of this country not having a free market like we do is just unconscionable to me, which is one of the big reasons that my husband and I are so engaged in this work and why we're on this cross-country conscious capitalism crusade. And we're enjoying it because we feel like this is important to encourage the great American entrepreneurial spirit. And I encourage you to join us on this journey because this is something we can all do. We can all take the time to mentor somebody. And mentorship doesn't have to be complicated. It could be just somebody reaching out to you, once a quarter and just asking you questions. It does not have to be a complicated thing, but it can change the trajectory of our country if we're all trying to lift each other up and mentor each other. And of course, if you want to learn more, go to my website or you can reach me at my email address. And I encourage you to download the free book excerpt, send it to your friends, have them read this, and so that they understand. And chapter 1 is Conscious Capitalism, Millennials, and an Evolving Perspective. And then there's also a QR code if you want to copy of today's slides. And that's it.
Thank you, DeLinda. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much, DeLinda. Really, really appreciate that amazing story. What she's done with her company has just been phenomenal. So really great. What we want to do next is we want to do a panel of millennials. So let's talk about making this real, right? Practical. And I am so excited to have this group. We were together on a prep call and the interview was amazing. Of course, DeLinda is running the panel, so she'll be engaging with these folks in the way that she does in her own company. So we're super excited. So I'm going to ask our panelists to come up and have a seat, and then I'll introduce them. Charcuterie. Fantastic. So I'm going to introduce our wonderful panel. And we do have 4 microphones. I'm going to hand mine back over in just a second. So we'll have 4. I think Ramon, you've got yours, right? Awesome. Perfect. So first I'd like to introduce Alicia Volkay. So she is the Director of Marketing for Pye, Barker, and Fire and Safety. We found her through Jackson Healthcare. She used to work with them. Jackson is a very big conscious capitalist supporter as well. She's also very passionate about the arts. She's with the Emory University Creative Arts Council, and she also got her MBA at Emory. And I'm going to put our panelists on the spot and ask them to tell us something personal. Tell us something that they wish other people knew about them or wish more people knew about them.
Oh, geez. I don't know what I wish more people knew about me, but I would tell you something that many people don't know about me is that I love to celebrate others, my friends and family. And so, especially when it comes down to birthdays, right? So I've been known to take my son out for cupcakes for breakfast on his birthday. It's it's probably not the Mother of the Year award, but it definitely is an opportunity for us to just enjoy some time together and have that special moment.
Great. Thank you, Alicia. Thank you so much. So next we have, just in alphabetical order, so that's the one we've done this way, is Jeremy Alexander. So Jeremy is the Vice President of Neurology at local Tenets, which is part of Jackson Healthcare. He helps to fill staffing shortages, and I can only imagine what that's like in this economy right now. I think he's probably one of the stressed people I've ever met, if that's true.
No stress.
No stress. He also volunteers with Meals on Wheels and Boy Scouts. He was Georgia Southern, and he loves his kids and animals. So how about you, Jeremy? Something that you wish more people knew about you?
That's a good question. I struggle with these. So a lot of people don't know that I went to school for broadcasting. I actually wanted to work for like ESPN. I love sports, passionate about sports. So a lot of people, when I tell them that, I'm like, I had no idea. So that's something that definitely like people to know about me. That's something I'm passionate about. Still, maybe one day I'll pursue this later in the future.
Great, thank you, Jeremy. Next, we have John Ruzick, and John is here with Improving. So, and he is a principal consultant with Improving. He's also focusing right now on DevOps and on emerging architectures, leading to transformations. In addition, he is an Ohio native, so one of our non-Georgia folk. We're so happy you're here. Exactly. And his wife and his child are here in Cumming, Georgia, I believe. Right. So John, you want to tell us something that maybe some of your folks here you wish they knew more about you?
Oh man, another tough one. I would just say that I'm insanely curious. If you're into underwater basket weaving, I'll listen to you talk about it. I mean, if you think it's not interesting, come talk to me because I'll find it interesting. I want to learn how everything works, no matter what it is. So that's it. If you want to share something, come talk to me. I'll be interested.
Fantastic, thanks, John. Now you know who to talk to with drinks. Yeah. And last but not least, we have Ramon Gonzalez. Ramon is the CEO and founder of Thrive, which is a hybrid work environment, really pulling culture together. He also helped to create a lot of energy and a 501c around micro donations. Pretty impressive stuff. So Ramon, what do you wish we knew about you?
Well, first, Jeremy, you've got a broadcaster's voice, man. You've got it's powerful. I'm a bit soft-spoken, so for me, it's just amazing to be in a room full of people that actually care about this stuff. Right? It's not every day that you get the opportunity to do that. And I didn't start off this way. When I graduated college, I was rather selfish. Kind of really focused and motivated on building my own personal empire. And I've changed a lot, and I think that the thing that I would love to communicate to folks, and I wish they knew about me, was that kind of that process, what that journey was like. Because man, there's there's a lot there, lots of ups and downs, and so that's my heart, and that's what enough people know about me.
Thank you, Ramon. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. So we're going to bring DeLinda back up to run our panel to conversations. She will be taking questions from the audience as well. Of course, has her own to have a conversation. It's a dialogue and a discussion. So I'm going to leave her to it.
Great. Well, we did have a wonderful conversation a couple weeks ago, and I'm just so impressed with these young people, and I don't mean to ever call you kids, but it's really hard to imagine, when my children are your age. And I'm just very impressed with how you're leading your lives and how you're giving back to the community and what amazing leaders you are. So thank you so much for being here, and I think you're going to be impressed with them as well. So we've got a couple of questions, and I'm going to start out with a question, and they're all going to answer this one. So tonight I covered a lot of information. I was just wondering, what's your initial response to it? What are you thinking about? What resonated? What didn't? What would you like to hear more of, or that maybe didn't resonate, or that have you ever had this type of experience in your co-working or your co-working?
I'll take it. Go
I'll take it. I'm like try. Your co-working. So, Alicia?
Sure. So you had a stat there, and it was that there's a 10.4 times more likely rate of attrition. If there's a culture component over compensation, and I kind of knew that, right, in my gut, but the statistic there is just astounding. I have to agree with your friend who said you just guess, right? I don't know that I've ever heard anybody put into words how important it is for there to be a collective environment for us to share ideas. It's how I've always enjoyed working, when people have brought me into the conversation and sort of thrown out the titles and just allowed us to speak and share voice and to encourage the ideas, even if they weren't really the right ideas at that moment. But it's so important, and just a great reminder that we really do need to focus on culture and what inspires us to move forward.
That's great. And the data's coming out more and more. Every story I read, it's all about culture.
Mm-hmm.
And there was an article I just read today that if you don't have a great culture, good luck. You are not. If you're struggling to attract talent now, 10 years from now, you'll struggle to even exist as a company if you don't have a strong culture. Thank you, John.
So I said the thing that really resonated with me was the millennials want to have skin in the game, be a part of the solution. And we preach that here at Improving is exhibiting ownership behavior. And I think we all want to feel like an owner and have some accountability. I don't carry a quota from a sales perspective, but every interaction that I have with a customer, I'm trying to sell Improving, try to improve that business. So that feeling absolutely resonated with me. I would say one thing that I would love to know more about, and really didn't, was you made the comment of conscious purchasing habits. And I'm just, in this day and age, I know if I need something, I pull up the Amazon app, search it, great, what's on Prime, what's got the lowest price, click buy, done, shows up 2 days later. I don't know if anybody else does that. I think a lot of people based on their finances, but based on Bezos is going to space. But I would love to know more in your opinion. What do you see from actual conscious purchasing habits as opposed to easy purchasing habits that we fall into?
Well, what I'm seeing, and maybe you've heard of, let's say, Tom's Shoes, right? You buy a pair of shoes and they donate a pair of shoes to a third world country. Millennials, that's how they're thinking more and more. And I don't know if that's how you're thinking. I know that we get busy, but I'll tell you, I'm looking at labels. Is it made in China? I really don't want to support China. Of course, none of us want to buy anything from Russia, but it's not saying. But I'm just very, very aware of it, and I know that we're in a hurry and we're on Amazon and we're Amazon Prime, but I do think that if I'm buying salad dressing, I'm gonna buy Newman's Own because I know it goes to charities. It's that we're getting more and more attuned to what are the politics of a company? How are they supporting certain policies? How are they supporting our, Mother Earth? How are they supporting our planet? Are they emitting carbon? I just think that that's becoming very, very top of mind for a lot of people. And that was this one survey said that they felt that the conscious consumerism had just skyrocketed in the last 18 months. And I thought, wow. I think it's your generation that's leading that charge.
All right, so for me, there will be a few that I definitely agreed with you to discuss. So servant leadership is huge for me. So you talk about getting down there to their level. I feel like that's one of the key things. And not for me, not just getting down to their level, but actually like doing the job. A lot of the millennials I see, a lot of the Generation Z, they want their managers doing the job with them, not just talking the talk. They're like, come get in the trenches with me. I think that builds their respect if you do those kind of things. One of the things I've heard constantly is that their company's giving back, that we're not just, going out and doing their job. There is a higher purpose within their job, but there also is charity work they're doing, things we're doing in the community to help out. And then the big thing that you talked about was making sure they run their business. So at Locum Tenens, we're big about empowering them, letting them run their business. They are like the stakeholders. So as a manager, that's one of the things that I try to do. I feel like people love that. Of course, when somebody starts out in year one, we're going to be more directive, but over time, they build a trust and they're pretty autonomous in their business. So that's one of the things I see from the millennials and Generation Z. They love that autonomy. And that's why a lot of people, we have a great retention rate of doing those kind of things.
Great, thank you, Jeremy.
So for me, well, first, the presentation was fantastic and it was data rich and very compelling. So I can echo a lot of the comments these guys made, but maybe something a bit different. I was just kind of curious about what you thought as it relates to application. Like it's amazing because the statistics are so startling. I mean, they're just in your face, right? In terms of the benefits. But you don't see that there's much application going on out there. There's some momentum. We all believe in that. But do you have any thoughts you want to share as it relates to why it might be that not as many companies as we might hope really kind of adopt this philosophy and make it core to how they do business?
Why more companies aren't leading like this?
Correct.
That is a concern, and we're seeing the shift. We're seeing this tipping point, this inflection point now, especially with the Great Resignation and attraction and retention of employees, that companies just don't have a choice. They're struggling. And I have some of my customers have come to me and they're excited for the book. And they're like, we're really struggling. We're losing so many employees. I don't know what to do, how to attract talent and keep talent. And so they read the book and they're, are you doing this? No. Are you doing that? No. And I'm like, well, if you want to keep your people, you've got to change how you're leading them or they're going to leave. So why aren't more companies doing this? Because they're more old school. I mean, even I was telling you how my husband and I struggled to do the work from home in 2015. But we did it. We suspended our disbelief that it was a good idea, and we did that, and we adapted. And I don't think a lot of people are that adaptive and eager to know what inspires their employees. So why are they doing it more? I think part of it is a lack of education and not understanding, which is why the Conscious Capitalism movement is so important, because it is 28 chapters. Atlanta has a very, very strong chapter here. And as we educate people, educate leaders, educate millennials that you don't have to talk. There are good companies out there that will treat you well and that you will grow, and leaders that realize that it's even becoming more and more painful and more difficult, and it affects their bottom line. That's why I put that quote from the U.S. Deloitte CEO, that human capital is the prime source of business value. Until they understand that, they're not going to shift. And I read Inc. and Fortune and Chief Executive. I read a lot, and it is a huge shift. Everybody's talking about, they often call it stakeholder capitalism. So the shift is happening, and it's because of there's this pain going on in the business community. So they're being forced to. And I think that's the only way it's going to happen, is when it affects that bottom line, that they can't attract and retain talent.
Great.
Yeah, thank you. So, I was never mentored as an employee, as an employee. I was never mentored. That was never given that opportunity. And I guess my back is to everybody. I'm sorry about that. And I would like to know, Alicia, have you been mentored? And if you have, can you talk about your mentoring experience, and did it matter? Did it improve your career if you were mentored?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been very fortunate to have some fantastic mentors throughout my career, right? And I've had various transitions in my career. I started in journalism and then moved to marketing, et cetera. One of, as I sort of reflected on this question, there are a few components that come to mind about my mentors and sort of what they inspire. One of the things that they always did, those that have had the greatest impact on my life, is that they've recognized a spark in me that I didn't even know existed, right? They would give me a project almost to test the waters, and then they would see how I would do and whether I would light up and whether I would become curious. And because of that, they introduced me to new avenues in my career that I didn't know were possible. So they've been incredibly empathetic, right? So you have to be really perceptive in order to see something in somebody and they've never done actually the project before. And there's an incredible amount of trust that they've given me, and autonomy, and the freedom to experiment and the freedom to fail. And so because of that, throughout my life, I think it's helped me in my career, and it's actually how I've chosen to mentor others, is bringing people to the table, throwing out all the titles, and just sitting there and collaborating, brainstorming, whiteboarding. It doesn't matter what role you have or your responsibilities, but how do we, if this is the goal, how do we achieve it together? And it's almost that in it to win it philosophy, but in it to win it together.
Yeah, so that's wonderful. When I was in Kansas City last week, there was a young woman. She reminded me a little bit about you. She writes poetry, and she's publishing her first poetry book, and she was talking how she had been mentored by this woman for many years, and it was just the most extraordinary experience. And everybody I've heard that has been mentored, they bloom. They see things in themselves that they did not see. And I hadn't thought of it that way, but that's a great way of thinking of it. Because mentorship, again, it doesn't have to be complicated. And the mentor benefits as much as the mentee. And you don't see that when you're giving your time. You're like, oh, I don't have time for this. But if you could understand that you're going to grow, you're going to evolve, that it's a gift that you give yourself as much as you're giving that other person, I think you could maybe shift your attitude and make the time, because it does benefit everybody who's involved. And Jeremy, could you also talk about your mentoring experience?
Yeah, so mine is very similar to Alicia. So one mentor in particular, I remember I was kind of at a fork road in my career, decided if I wanted to stay as a production salesperson or move into management. And I remember talking to my manager and he was like, I don't know if you can do that role. And it's like, okay, but I have a mentor who saw in me and he was like, hey, this is a route you should take, kind of pushed me. And even when I was doubting myself and didn't see, the potential in myself, he pushed me, encouraged me. And, I talked to him kind of like, here's how you navigate to where you want to go, gave me advice on how I would get there, and coached me up. And that's one of the things for me, like as a mentor, I try to pass that down to people that I'm working with, see things in them, encourage them because, these are some of our future leaders. So that was huge in my career. And when I got promoted and became a VP of my team, I walked to that guy and said, if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be here. And he's like, no, you would have got here. And I was like, no, legitimately, I didn't believe enough in myself to get myself here. So without you, I would not be in this position. So I think mentors are critical and very important in reaching the career goals that you want to get to.
That's a great story. Thank you so much for that story. And that also highlights why I say that mentorship is very parental. Because children don't know their potential. They don't see what they're going to grow up to be. They don't know who they're going to be. But a mentor, a parent, can see that and spark that and give that gift of, it's just a beautiful story. I really like that story. Because you can see just, how it has changed the trajectory of his career. That's really important. That's a gift we can all give to another human being. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. Ramon, as a millennial, how do you feel motivated and valued, and what works and what does not work? And how does culture play a role at Thrive?
I just made it as a millennial, by the way. I just made it.
Right.
Yeah, right at the cutoff. But I'm happy to be associated with it. So for Thrive, for me, I lead the team at Thrive, and culture matters immensely for us. Really, by the nature of our business, we're kind of like an outsourced solution for companies as it relates to culture, because we curate the space, we create cool events, we try to make it an engaging place for people to work. And what we're finding, not only in our company, but in the companies that are a part of our spaces, is that it just yields incredible dividends. The engagement is significant. People talk about how their team members want to stay, in part because of where they are, because of the culture that's kind of been created in the spaces. Culture is a big topic, and there are lots of different layers to it. Mentorship is a big part of it. To kind of piggyback off of the mentorship piece, mentorship isn't just a program. It's like a disposition of the heart towards someone that is, part of your life, and being willing to invest in them, and being willing to receive feedback, receive criticism. That's sort of one of the cornerstones for our culture, at least, is that kind of that wide open door. Like, hey, our reviews, when we do reviews with members of the team, it starts with how can I be more effective as a leader? And other folks that are leading different teams, it's the same kind of thing. And I think that's foundational to sort of establish trust and to allow for a culture to sort of grow organically. So, we could talk at length about every element of it. For me, that's one of the principles that matters the most. And with that trust, you can do anything. You can solve any problem. You can overcome any obstacle, and you can pursue any opportunity. So, that's one of the most important things for us.
Yeah. That's 2 times people have been talking about trust. Trust is so important. Trust is important in every relationship. And of course, it's important in a business relationship too. And without trust, what do you have? You don't have trust. You have nothing. So thank you for bringing that up. John, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, culture is a huge topic, and it fuses into everything. And I think the thing that you hit on, or the comment that resonated with me in terms of culture, is just feeling valued and cared for, and then they will in turn care for others. So just by getting that, you give your business a boost, because they're going to want to give back, right? But sticking with the culture thing, I think there was a time, especially being in tech, and Scott loves to say this, that we would throw a ping pong table in the lobby and say, congratulations, we've got culture now. Why are you all that? And that's great for a week, but the feeling valued and being a part of engaged on solutions is really how you build culture. And you have these great events that bring the team together and show value. The one thing I will say is, if you noticed on the slide of the 10.4 times toxic, all of those were relative to compensation. So that still plays a big part in that. I've started my career in huge corporate environments where the only way to get a raise was to quit. And they would come back, oh my gosh, you're quitting? Here's a huge raise. That doesn't work anymore. If you're in a recognize people for their value, not only with the solutions that you provide in the company, but with a salary compensation. And that's how you retain great talent, in my experience, in my opinion.
Well, you have to have all the benefits and compensation. That goes without saying. You can't have a great culture and not pay people enough money for, to survive. And one of the things that we were always so proud of is how many millennials in our company were able to buy homes in Southern California, a lot. And maybe not in the last couple of years, it's not so much, but they were just buying home out, and it felt good that we were paying them enough and they felt safe enough, that trust factor, that they were able to make that huge commitment and buy a home. So compensation, that's just, what do they call it, table stakes. You have to have good compensation and benefits. And then you have to do more. You have to have that great culture, but you don't think that, I'm going to create this great culture and now I can pay them less. No, that's not going to work. And I was wondering, what would be the biggest takeaway from today's session? And why don't you all answer this? And why don't you start? I'll start with Ramon. What's the biggest takeaway that is like an actionable step from today's conversation that we've had that you would like to implement in any practical applications that you can come up with?
Yeah, so there's clearly a big motivation to do so, right? Like the statistics are profound. You can look at the impact on bottom line, and retention, and all the costs associated with losing valuable employees. And so I think for me, already being very focused on this topic and on this whole thing, I can say that this first step is to make sure that you have your perspective is correct, right? Like when you have an employee, you have to be really invested in them, and you have to genuinely care about their well-being, and not just oh yeah, he's a good guy, he's a good gal, be cool to grab a drink, but think about how can I make their lives better? How can I do more to help them actualize themselves? One of the things that we tell folks when we hire them is, hey, before I ever met you, you probably had hopes and dreams. And I'm pretty sure that they weren't about Thrive. So what do you want to do with your life, right? And how can we help you get there, whether it's as a part of Thrive or not? And having that kind of perspective, that kind of disposition, hey, their well-being and fulfilling their desires is more significant than whatever position we're putting them in here now. Let's help them get there. Sometimes it's with us, sometimes it's not. But just start with that mindset and start to communicate in that way and think about things through that lens. And the steps, the tasks, that'll sort of follow on its own.
To echo a lot of what he was saying, and even when they were talking about feeling value, to me, one of the things I try to do as a leader is really get to know my people, build relationships with them, let them know that I care about them as a person above everything else, because I feel like, as an individual, when I had managers that really were invested in me, cared about my personal life, I would go the extra mile to work harder for them. So for for me, I think that's one of the big key factors as a leader is making sure we make our employees feel valued. And then on top of that, just try to make sure we're continuously improving, growing, getting better. One of the values that I really believe in is just advancing in life. There's no finish line, making sure that we're always getting better, being open to feedback. And I feel like anytime you're doing that as a leader, it reciprocates from your employees. You get that same energy. So those would be the biggest takeaways for me.
Yeah, my takeaway, I mean, personal to me, and the thing that I'm going to work on after this is I consider myself a great technical leader. I'm focused on software solution architecture, things like that, and I'm pretty good at that. Where maybe I struggle and really see the value of it is the people leadership. Focus on people versus things, and you realize just in stark contrast out of a presentation like this, how important that is. You need to have great services, you need to have great product, but if you don't also have the great people that you're focused in and invested in, that can really harm all of the great work you do in some of the other areas. So that's one of the things and one of the takeaways out of this that I'll really focus on just personally.
I love that. Thank you so much. I love to hear that it had a positive impact on you, because I think that we get so focused on what we're doing and the task at hand and the deadlines and the customers. And it's like we forget we're working with people. And you can't forget that. And I think that as the years went by working with Elise, I realized, boy, she really drives. Put another plug in there. Drives when I'm working with her and lifting her up and encouraging her. And it's an incredible thing to see her. She's such a better leader than I ever was, because it's an evolution. You just admitted that's huge in front of all these people. That's a big step to say, I want to be more caring, and say, oh, I can be more caring, and I understand that. When she first started at ICE, she was 20, and she was young, and she wasn't as caring, and now she's the most caring person I could possibly imagine. And you've seen this evolution, so people change, and they understand. The more information you have, like tonight, the more you understand. I'm going to get a lot more out of my people. If I have a better relationship, and I'm going to enjoy it more too if I have this relationship with people. It's all about relationship, and it's tough to shift, but I think you will. And I bet you're probably much better than you're letting on it, but there's always room for improvement.
Always room for
Always, yes.
Well, so as I listened to my fellow panelists and then I heard you speak, one of the questions that keeps coming up in my head is, how will I show up today, right? So how do I ask myself that question? Not just on the days that are good, but on the days when the stress is high, right? When we have to hit the numbers. How do I remind myself that we all are human, that we all are going to make mistakes, and what would I like to experience if it were me in that moment, and how can I be a friend to my coworkers even when there will be tense times, right? So culture, we can't just talk about it in the good. We also have to sort of experience it in those moments where things are heavier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember Elise telling me, this was in the early years, she said, I just want you to know, I really appreciate all you've done for me all these years, but I remember leaving the office and just crying on the way home. I'm like, crying? What were you crying about? And she's like, you had such high expectations. And I'm like, well, yeah. And now she's like, I'm now the same person. I just do it a lot, softer than you do. But I'm glad. So we're all learning. And that's a great thing. And she sees that, because we can either be a shining example or a horrible one. And we're all both in our lives, as through our lives. We show both, because we can't have a perfect day every day. And it looks like we're getting close to the end of our meeting.
We are. I wanna keep the conversation going, but I think we'll keep going over drinks. If that's okay. Is that okay,
Yes.
guys?
Absolutely.
So fantastic. So appreciate all of our panelists. Thank you so much. And of course, DeLinda, amazing job. So please.